Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they've been setting goals the wrong way their entire lives. You've been told to dream big, to write it down, to manifest it, but none of that is why you keep falling short. The truth is, your goals are broken before you even start chasing them. Think about it. If goals actually worked the way you were taught, wouldn't you already have everything you wrote down in the last 5 years? Wouldn't you already be in shape, making more money, living that dream life? But you're not, because the way you set goals guarantees failure. Most people start their goals with the wrong target. They write down what they want to have, not who they need to become or what they need to do. They'll say, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to make $1 million. I want to have a six-pack, or I want to retire early. Sounds good, right? But here's the trap. Those are outcomes, and outcomes are outside your control. You can't wake up tomorrow and decide that the scale will read 20 pounds less. You can't just choose that your bank account has an extra million in it. You can want it all day long, but wanting doesn't change reality. What you can control, though, is the set of actions that create those outcomes. And that's where most people set themselves up to fail, because they spend their energy obsessing over the end result instead of mastering the daily process that actually gets them there. Think about it this way. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. The summit is the outcome. Let's say it's the $1 million or the weight loss or whatever your version of success is. Now, if all you do is stare at the top of the mountain, you're going to get overwhelmed, maybe even discouraged because it feels impossibly far away. But the only thing that actually moves you closer is putting one foot in front of the other. That's the action. And if you commit to taking the right steps consistently, you eventually get to the top, whether you're staring at it or not. The summit takes care of itself if you keep climbing. Here's the mistake most people make. They spend their energy visualizing the summit, telling people about the summit, journaling about the summit, maybe even buying gear as if they're on the way to the summit, but they don't actually climb. That's why goals feel frustrating. You think you're working toward it, but you're just circling around the bottom of the mountain. The people who win aren't better dreamers, they're better doers. They translate their goals into daily actions that can't be skipped. Take money as an example. Saying, I want to make $1 million doesn't mean anything. It's just a wish. The real question is what actions will generate that million. Maybe it's making 50 sales calls a day. Maybe it's creating and publishing valuable content every day. Maybe it's running ads. Maybe it's shipping product. Whatever it is, the $1 million is the byproduct of consistently executing those actions. The focus has to be on the inputs, not the outcome. The million comes when the inputs are relentless. Or fitness, saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, won't make the weight disappear. The scale doesn't care what you wrote in your journal. What matters is how many workouts you did, what food you put in your mouth, how much sleep you got, how consistent you stayed. The outcome is inevitable if you stick to the inputs. And the painful truth is, if you're not hitting your goals, it's not because the outcome is impossible. It's because your actions don't line up with what you say you want. This is why most goals are broken from the start. They're designed around things you can't directly control. It's like saying, my goal is for the sun to shine tomorrow. That's not a goal. It's a hope. A real goal is something you have the power to execute no matter what. And when you anchor your goals to actions instead of outcomes, you take your power back. You don't have to wait. You don't have to cross your fingers. You can act today, right now, and know you're on the path to the result. Here's the mental shift. Stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, what am I willing to do every single day? That's the real test. Because if you can't commit to the actions, the outcome doesn't matter. It's just a fantasy. But if you commit to the actions and refuse to break them, the outcome eventually has no choice but to show up. That's how you win. One of the biggest reasons people never reach their goals is because the timeline is so far away, it doesn't feel real. They sit down and create these 10-year visions or lifetime goals. And on paper, it looks inspiring. You write down, in 10 years, I want to have a dream house, financial freedom, a perfect body, and total peace of mind. It sounds powerful in the moment. But here's the problem. Your brain doesn't respond to things that are 10 years away. It doesn't know how to connect the pain you're feeling now with a payoff that comes a decade later. And when the reward feels too distant, you don't act with urgency today. You procrastinate, you rationalize, you keep saying, I'll start tomorrow. That's why so many people get stuck. Their goals are too far away to make them move now. If I told you that in 10 years I'm going to give you $1 million if you work hard every day, most people would quit by year 2. But if I told you that I'll give you $1,000 at the end of this week if you do specific tasks daily, you'd suddenly become disciplined. Why? Because the payoff is near enough that you feel the pressure. Humans need urgency to act. We need to feel the reward is connected to the effort. That's why people don't miss deadlines when they're tomorrow, but drag their feet when it's a month away. Your goals work the same way. So when you set a goal like, in 5 years I'll be financially free, the distance kills it. 5 years is too far. You'll find excuses to delay. You'll justify skipping the work today because it won't matter in the long run. And that's how you lose. The real strategy is to keep the vision long term but pull the execution into the short term. You need daily and weekly goals that force urgency, that make you take action now, not someday. Take someone who wants to run a marathon. If the marathon is in a year, it feels far away. They say, I've got time. I'll start training later. Then months go by, and they're unprepared when the event comes. Compare that to someone who sets a near-term goal. This week, I will run 3 miles every single day. That's immediate. That's actionable. It creates urgency because the timeline is so short. Multiply that by weeks and months. And by the time the marathon comes, they're ready. They didn't obsess over the marathon. They obsessed over what they could control this week. The same applies in business. You can say, I want to build $1 million company, but that vision doesn't create urgency. The better approach is, this week I'm going to make 100 calls. This week I'm going to close 5 deals. Short-term execution builds long-term success. It's not about the 10-year goal. It's about the 10-day target. And here's the irony. The long-term dream only happens if you dominate the short-term goals. People keep asking, what's my 5-year plan? When the truth is, your 5-year plan is just the sum of your next 260 weeks. If you keep winning weeks, you don't have to worry about years. They take care of themselves. Here's the real takeaway. Stop making your goals so far away that they don't change you now. Keep the big vision, yes, but tie it to something that demands effort today. Urgency beats fantasy. If your goals don't force you to act this week, they're useless. It's not about where you'll be in 10 years. It's about what you're doing today to earn tomorrow. Most people set goals like they're filling out a Christmas list. I want to lose some weight. I want to save some money. I want to start a business. It all sounds nice, but the truth is, nice doesn't move you. You don't change your life because something sounds nice. You change your life because staying the same has become unbearable. Pain is the real fuel. Without pain, goals are just fantasies written on paper. With pain, they turn into a mission. Think about the times in your life when you actually made a change. It wasn't because you casually wanted something. It was because you hit a point where you said, I can't live like this anymore. Maybe you were sick of being broke. Maybe you hated the way you looked in the mirror. Maybe you were embarrassed, ashamed, frustrated, or angry. That's pain. And pain is powerful. Pain makes you act when motivation is gone. Pain makes you push through when it's hard. If you don't have pain attached to your goals, the first obstacle will knock you out. The reason most goals fail is because people try to build them on comfort. They want things to be easy, smooth, and painless. They say, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to give up pizza. Or, I want to make more money, but I don't want to risk failing. They try to have the reward without the struggle. But here's the truth. Pain is unavoidable. You either choose the pain of discipline or you live with the pain of regret. One moves you forward. The other keeps you stuck forever. Let me give you an example. Let's say someone says, I want to stop smoking. If they just want it because it sounds nice, like, I know it's healthier, chances are they'll quit for a few days, then go back. But if their doctor tells them, if you don't stop smoking right now, you'll be dead in 2 years, suddenly the pain of continuing becomes bigger than the pain of quitting. That's when change sticks. The pain of staying the same finally outweighs the pain of changing. Or look at money. A lot of people say, I'd like to have more money. That's not enough. If you're comfortable, if your bills are paid and you're getting by, you won't push yourself to do the hard things that actually make you rich. But if you've been humiliated by debt collectors, if you've had your card declined in front of people, if you felt the shame of not being able to provide for your family, that pain becomes a fire. Suddenly, making calls, working long hours, and taking risks don't feel optional anymore. They feel necessary. And that's when you break through. Pain sharpens goals. It forces you to decide what matters and what doesn't. If you're not crystal clear on why the cost of staying the same is too high, your goals will fall apart the second things get uncomfortable. You'll always default back to easy. But if you've burned the bridge behind you, if you've attached your goal to something deeply painful, like proving people wrong, never going back to poverty, or refusing to stay stuck, you'll fight through hell to get it. The uncomfortable truth is that the people who change the fastest are usually the ones who've suffered the most. Pain wakes you up. Pain strips away the excuses. Pain gives your goals teeth. The comfortable rarely change because comfort numbs urgency. The hurting change because pain forces them to. So the next time you set a goal, don't just write what you want. Write down why you can't stay where you are. What's the pain you're running from? What's the thing that hurts so much you'll do whatever it takes to escape it? Anchor your goals to that and they'll stop being weak wishes. They'll become survival. And survival goals never die. Most people confuse goals with fantasies. They don't even realize they're doing it. They'll say, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be in great shape. And in their minds, they've set a goal. But that's not a goal, that's a fantasy. A fantasy is a picture in your head that makes you feel good. It gives you a little dopamine hit when you think about it, but it doesn't change anything about your life. A goal, on the other hand, is concrete, measurable, and tied to specific actions you control. Saying, I want to be rich is a fantasy. Saying, I will make 50 cold calls a day for the next 90 days is a goal. One feeds your ego, the other builds your future. Here's how you can tell the difference. If you can imagine it but not measure it, it's a fantasy. If you can track it, repeat it, and do it, it's a goal. Fantasies live in your head, goals live in your calendar. Fantasies are fun to talk about. Goals are boring to execute. And that's why most people stick with fantasies. They're easier, they're painless, and they make you look good at parties when you tell people about them. But at the end of the day, fantasies don't put food on the table, don't transform your body, don't build your business. Actions do. Think about fitness. Saying, I want a six-pack is a fantasy. It feels good to say it. You might even imagine yourself on the beach, confident and ripped. But until you say, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, track my meals, and hit my protein goal every single day for the next 90 days, nothing changes. That second version is a goal. It's actionable. It's uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it works. In business, people say, I want to be a millionaire. Again, that's a fantasy. You don't just wake up one morning and find $1 million in your account because you wished for it. The real goal is, I'm going to launch a product, run 10 ads every day, and call 20 prospects daily until I close my first 100 sales. That's a system. That's measurable. And when you repeat it long enough, the million is inevitable. The fantasy makes you feel good today. The goal makes you win tomorrow. The reason so many people lie frustrated is because they confuse the two. They keep chasing fantasies, then get mad at themselves for not reaching them. But the truth is you can't fail at a fantasy because it's not even real to begin with. You can only fail at goals you actually commit to and execute. And the reason people avoid real goals is because they demand accountability. With a fantasy, no one knows if you're failing. With a goal, it's obvious. If you said you'd make 50 calls a day and you only made 10, you failed. That's uncomfortable. That's why most people stick with, I want to be rich, instead of I will call 50 people. But here's the secret, the discomfort is the whole point. Real goals are uncomfortable because they drag you out of the dream world and into reality. They force you to act. They expose whether or not you're serious. And they give you a real scoreboard that tells you if you're winning or losing. Once you embrace that, you stop wasting time dreaming and start building. The line between fantasy and goal is the line between people who talk about success and people who live it. One group feeds off daydreams. The other group feeds off results. If you want to stop being frustrated, stop chasing fantasies. Start setting goals that scare you because they demand effort, consistency, and accountability. And here's the good news. Once you start stacking actions, once you start hitting real goals, the fantasies you used to dream about stop being fantasies, they turn into your life. Most people set goals like, I want to be fit or I want to be wealthy, but they don't build the systems that make those goals inevitable. That's why they keep quitting, restarting, and feeling stuck. A goal without a system is like a car without an engine. It looks good from the outside, but it's not going anywhere. Systems are what transform goals from fragile wishes into unstoppable progress. Here's the problem. People confuse goals with processes. They think saying the words, I want to be fit, is the same as having a plan to actually become fit. But unless that goal is backed by repeatable daily actions, it will collapse the moment life gets hard. Think about it. If your goal is to work out and you wake up tired, what happens? You hit snooze, you justify skipping the gym. You say, I'll start again tomorrow. But if you have a system like a set workout plan scheduled for 6 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with a training partner waiting for you, then skipping isn't just about willpower anymore. The system pulls you in whether you feel like it or not. Systems create discipline by default. When you rely on motivation, you're setting yourself up for failure because motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. Systems don't care how you feel. They keep you moving forward on autopilot. That's why successful people focus less on the goal and more on the system that makes the goal unavoidable. Take money as an example. Saying, I want to save $50 is a weak goal on its own. But if you create a system where 20% of every paycheck automatically transfers into an investment account, now you don't need to think about it. You don't need motivation. The system makes saving automatic. Over time, that system produces the outcome you wanted without constant decision making or discipline. Look at athletes. Their goal might be to win a championship, but that's not what makes them champions. What makes them champions is the system, the daily practices, the nutrition plans, the rest schedules, the accountability from coaches and teammates. The championship is just the byproduct of a system executed relentlessly. That's why some people keep winning over and over again. Their system is stronger than everyone else's. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people fail not because their goals are too big, but because their systems are too weak. They think writing the goal down is enough. They never build the infrastructure to actually make it happen. That's why diets fail. That's why businesses collapse. That's why people set the same resolutions year after year and never change. It's not that they're incapable. It's that they're trying to get in an outcome without building the machine that produces it. If you want to know whether your goal will happen, ask yourself, what system do I have in place to guarantee it? If the answer is nothing, then you don't have a real goal. You just have a dream. Real goals are built on systems. Systems turn your actions into habits, your habits into consistency, and your consistency into results. The beauty of systems is that they compound. A system executed daily removes decision fatigue. You don't waste energy debating whether to act. You just follow the system. Over time, the compound effect kicks in. The workouts add up. The calls add up. The money adds up. That's when people start saying, wow, you're so disciplined. But it's not discipline. It's systems. So stop obsessing over the goal and start obsessing over the system. If your goal is to write a book, your system is writing 1 page a day, no matter what. If your goal is to grow a business, your system is running ads, calling leads, and delivering results consistently. If your goal is to be fit, your system is eating clean and training on a fixed schedule. Systems create inevitability. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. If your systems are weak, your goals will collapse. If your systems are strong, your goals don't stand a chance. They will happen whether you like it or not. That's the power of building a system-driven life. The truth about goals is that they'll never rise above the standard you set for yourself. You don't get the life you want, you get the life you tolerate. And most people tolerate mediocrity because deep down, their identity doesn't match the goals they claim to want. They'll say, I want to be successful, but they see themselves as someone who tries and quits. They'll say, I want to be disciplined, but they see themselves as someone who breaks promises to themselves. That's why the goal never happens. Your goals will always hit the ceiling of who you believe you are. If your identity is weak, your goals collapse under it. The people who win don't just set goals. They raise the standard of who they are. They say, I'm the kind of person who doesn't miss workouts. Or, I'm the kind of person who makes calls no matter how I feel. They hardwire it into their identity. It's not something they try to do. It's who they are. That shift changes everything because now the actions that create success are automatic. They don't have to rely on willpower every day. They act in alignment with their identity. Think about it. If you identify as a smoker, quitting feels impossible because you're trying to fight against who you think you are. But the moment you shift your identity to, I'm not a smoker anymore, every cigarette becomes out of character. The goal is no longer a stretch. It's consistent with your new standard. The same is true in business, fitness, relationships, or anything else. Once you decide, this is who I am now, your actions start to align with that. The mistake most people make is they try to chase goals while keeping the same old identity. They want millionaire results, but still act like an employee. They want athlete-level bodies, but still think like someone who eats for comfort. They want discipline, but still call themselves lazy. That disconnect is why they never break through. You can't outwork a broken identity. Your identity will always pull you back to the level you've accepted for yourself. Raising your standard means drawing a line in the sand and saying, from now on, this is the minimum I accept from myself. It's not about being perfect. It's about refusing to live below that line ever again. If you decide that missing workouts is no longer who you are, you stop negotiating with yourself. If you decide that skipping sales calls is no longer who you are, you stop making excuses. It becomes non-negotiable. And when something becomes non-negotiable, it becomes inevitable. Look at the highest performers in any field. They don't set goals and then hope they'll rise to the occasion. They raise their identity first, then the goals become checkpoints along the way. A Navy SEAL doesn't wake up and wonder if he's going to train that day. His standard is set. He trains because that's who he is. A successful entrepreneur doesn't wake up and wonder if she's going to work on her business. Her standard is set. She works because that's who she is. Their goals are inevitable because their identity demands the actions that produce them. So if you want bigger goals, you don't just need better strategies, you need a higher standard for yourself. You need to become the kind of person who refuses to accept less. Because once your identity shifts, you don't need to force success anymore. You live it, you embody it. Your goals become an expression of who you are, not a fantasy you're chasing. At the end of the day, your goals don't shape you, your standards do. If you want more, raise the bar on who you are and what you tolerate from yourself. Stop saying, I want, and start saying, I am. Stop trying to reach for goals with the same old identity. Build the identity first, and the goals will follow automatically. That's how you stop setting goals wrong and start living them right. The difference between people who win and people who keep dreaming isn't talent, luck, or motivation. It's the way they set goals. Stop writing down wishes. Stop chasing outcomes you don't control. Raise your standards, build systems, and make your goals about what you do every single day. Because once you set goals the right way, success isn't a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.